These scenes taken around Pretty Green and Main's barn in the early 1960s are fairly typical of caving at the period, and indeed in many ways today. Everyone's done at least one trip there in Swildon's. That's Sue Collier, and that in fact was her first trip down Swildon's. And John Thomas coming out there, giving me the appropriate salute. And there's Terry Hall, who was shortly off to be off to Australia. They're making the familiar route towards the fields. There's always a sort of feeling of expectation as you walk across the field towards Swildon's. I even feel it these days after I've done the place hundreds of times. Now these upper Swildon's sequences were taken considerably later in 1968, after I was married, and when I went down there with Brian and Anne Stewart to just do a nostalgic bit of filming using our simple bower light system that was the only thing we had left that worked by then. This is Willie making his way around a boss, I think, up towards the wetway. The interesting thing about this sequence is it was taken in April '68, only 3 months before the big floods which vastly altered the cave out of all recognition around that area. This boulder pile that Brian's going into now used to stand in the water chamber above the water rift. The flooding moved all these boulders and they settled down when the water rift opened up. There's Anne climbing through there. I mean, to be honest, we wouldn't have gone through the boulders like that, we'd have gone over the top of them, but we were now this is Brian's about to get onto his hands and knees and crawl into the water rift. Once you got under that little bit there, you could stand up and walk horizontal to the top of the 40 foot. So now it's a steeply descending water rift, and the old way is abandoned up in the roof. And here's Brian just coming round another boulder, playing about a bit. And this is the way up to the wetway. This is what's left of the bower lighting kit. Standard lead acid battery, 2 bulbs run at 24 volts, but they were in fact overrun. Put in a box, simple enough one for one man to carry. The initial camera was a Bell & Howell, cheap old thing, but we very quickly went on to this Rolls Royce of cameras, the Bolex B8. It's built like a tank, and easy to use. Gave a very good picture, but unfortunately completely useless now as they can't get film for it. The projector we used, again quite a top of the range item for its day, had one extra little gadget on the back there. There was a tape synchronizer, so it was possible to put a soundtrack on a tape recorder and thread it through this gadget here, and by controlling the speed of the film through the projector one could synchronise a soundtrack. Unfortunately we've lost the tapes now. Our Farnham group had only been caving about 18 months when we decided we'd have a go at filming underground. We coincided the trip with the youth club trip, so we could borrow lots of motorcycle batteries, and we arranged these in banks of 4 in 3 boxes. You can see the boxes here, and these were coupled to these lights which ran off 24 volts. We decided it would be best if we went into the cave overnight so we could have the place to ourselves, and we used some of the youth club lads as Sherpas to get the equipment over to the cave entrance. The obvious place to try and film was the upper reaches of Swildon's Hole. This is a party going into the entrance of Swildon's as it was at the time, and you can see at this stage there was no blockhouse built. You paid your money to Mr. Main as
as still is the case today, and went down. There's John going down the entrance, and that pack there is a fairly typical army pack that we used to use for our equipment. This film is a composite of two filming attempts. The first was made in April 1960 and the second in March 1961. The first film we used was Pan Ultra, which was about 60 ASA, I think, but we later went on to Perutz 400, which, although a bit more grainy, produced better results with the lights available. In fact, these first sequences are the ones that were taken on the Perutz film. And this is John coming round towards the top of Jacob's Ladder. And he's about to go down the ladder now. Oh no, that's the little squeeze into the into the long dry. We weren't too fussy about scripting it in those days. We just were trying to get shots of cavers coming down caves. That's Jacob's Ladder. Now these pictures here were taken on the first trip in 1960. There's Terry Lamport wambling about round the old grotto. I think it's fair to say that the picture quality on this first attempt was probably better than on the second. And that's going down under the floor of the old grotto. That's Terry again. You can just make out the edge of the lights there. We had to get them fairly close to the subject. And this is Terry climbing up through a hole in the floor of the old grotto, followed fairly quickly by John Thomas. At this stage he seems to have got a nice television. In those days we tended to use carbide lamps or electric lights made up and fitted with bell batteries fixed to the back of the helmet. These are the formations in the old grotto. That's the elephant's ear, and John's handling it, which perhaps he shouldn't have been. More formations in the roof of the old grotto. One of my favourite places even today, the old grotto. Spent some time there once brewing up soup on a rescue. This is the organ pipes on the way down to the water rift. That's one of our ammo boxes there. And this is Colin Cross making his way down to the water chamber. The three lights there you can see on the side, and I think this is Terry Lamport climbing up into the water chamber proper. Wearing ex-army boots at the time, boiler suits. By about 1960 we had got good suits, and because it was the middle of the night we gave ourselves a soup tea break, a smoke right for Pete. Sadly, Pete was the first member of our team to die. He died a couple of years ago. And he's giving the tea to Terry Lamport. And there's a fairly rare picture of me in my old white caving helmet with a carbide lamp and an improvised electric light I seem to be wearing there, and the bell battery on the top of the helmet. This is Terry making the exit up Jacob's Ladder, and Pete Greenfield bringing some of the equipment out the exit. And he's followed by Colin Cross. That was the box I think we had the camera in.